What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Sweat It Out podcast. Today we have two incredible people, but not just incredible in themselves. It's just these two individuals. They go above and beyond in everything they do, and these are two good friends of mine, and they've really helped me direct certain areas in my life. So please let me help me, guys, to welcome.
Angie Sanchez and Rob Reynosa. Woo! What's up, guys?
Welcome on the podcast, guys.
Here.
Let's crack a lagging with the boost.
Welcome.
How you guys been?
Great.
Fantastic, man. Really
very,
fantastic.
very fortunate, and we're just really happy to be here and connect with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we feel very fortunate to have you guys on. I know you guys are just about as busy as we are, if not busier. So thank you one more time.
We always appreciate you guys. You know I always do, and anytime I can get a nice convo with each of you, imagine now two of you at the same time. It's a blessing. So we're definitely excited to get some knowledge bombs and shoot the shit.
I've heard that you like to be double teamed.
Well,
Yeah, he does.
Wow.
That's why her foot is messed up.
The problem is this one gets jealous.
Yeah, I'm that jealous boyfriend for sure.
That's where we're going. Okay.
Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. Sweat it out.
Yeah.
He'll definitely open up these kind of conversations.
Oh yeah, I have no filter.
Perfect.
I have no filter.
Woo!
So get ready.
You'll love Josh.
Yeah.
That's
So-
serious.
Yeah, I'm the least serious person you'll ever meet. So
So guys, I just want to set the tone for the beginning, and I want to, since we got two special people on here, I want you guys to take turns in each just giving a little bit of direction and letting these people know, kind of how you started in your fields and what are you about today.
Me first?
Let's go for it.
All right, I feel honored. Yeah. So let's see who I am. Rob Reynosa. What I do, I am a mindset and business coach, mentor, consultant. I help people get their mindset right, get their minds right, and help them create money by delivering services, whether it be coaching services, consulting services, whatnot. The first step always is to get the mind right and then get everything aligned and then help them get associated with money consciousness, business consciousness, entrepreneurship consciousness, and then help them bring in that revenue and help people and impact lives. How I got started with that, back in like 2011, I started going through my whole spiritual awakening transition shit, shook up my world. I had a badass job that was paying me a little bit over 6 figures. Great benefits, great everything on paper. And I started to kind of tap into more of personal development and started to realize that I was working at a dead end job because I was getting paid for my hours of being there. And it was crazy, man. I started to realize damn, I don't want to be in this situation anymore. I don't want to do this. I don't care how good the money is. I got to do something different. And right around that time, I started to look deeper into myself, the problems of the world. I was just kind of reading all the stuff that was happening behind the scenes. And I was like, man, I got to do something about this, man. I got to do something about this. So I started to put my focus into helping other people develop their own mindsets, helping them get clear about who they are and what they want to do with their lives. And so that was back, like I said, 2011. We're in 2020 now. It's been a crazy last 9 years. And I want to say the last 2.5, 3 years is actually the time I've actually been successful. So up until that point, I was super trying to figure everything out. And yeah, man, that's my journey.
I think we can all agree on that. These moments of our process are definitely some interesting times that take the best out of us to help us become who we are today. So, just knowing you guys for the amount of time I've known you guys, every year it's like, holy shit, they're on another level.
I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So my turn. So I consider myself an emotional intelligence coach. I do have my certification in integrative health. However, I would say within the last 2 years or so, I've kind of veered more in the direction of EQ. And so what I help clients do is essentially
what's EQ?
emotional intelligence.
Okay.
He's very emotional.
Yeah.
Well, I hope
I'm
so.
very, very sensitive. So just don't yell,
Sure.
okay? Because I'm very sensitive and I'm going to start crying.
What's interesting is that people don't realize that we're first and foremost emotional creatures before we're logical creatures, and that's the part where they don't teach us that in school. So it's one of those things where I had my own personal experience that inspired the journey that I'm on now, but also looking back when I did start, I am essentially filling a void and a gap that is very evident in the school system and in our upbringing, and it's something that, in my opinion, should be instilled into our environments from the moment that we're children. So I do specialize in EQ. I'm certified in integrative health, and I've had my practice now for 5.5 years. Where what got me here, in a nutshell, was when I was 21, between the ages of 21 to 23, I fell into a chronic depression. And I say chronic because it was ongoing, medication was involved, the whole 9 yards. And as a result of the depression, I developed BED, which is binge eating disorder. So you see me now, I was about 45 pounds heavier than I am now. And that all took place in the course of 2 years. When I was able to come out of that, I knew that the corporate world was not for me, and that becoming an entrepreneur and a business owner was meant for me. It was just, I had to define how I was going to do that. And then part of my journey included finding my own coach when I was 25 years old, starting my journey with him as a client. So I'm very fortunate in that I've seen it from the other side too. And then I invested in a certification, which was about a year and a half. It was in one of these little online bullshit certifications that give us health coaches a bad name. And then, it evolved. I started to see the pain points that were very prominent across my target market, and I just decided to niche in that area of emotional intelligence. So it could be anything from a person who, as far as somebody I work with, it could be anything from a person who is struggling with habits, or they're trying to build a business from scratch, or they are struggling in their marriage or things like that. So whatever imbalances they're coming to me with, the way that I help them bring the balance is by strengthening their EQ. So and Anthony can tell you.
Oh yeah. I was about to dive a little bit into that. So I
Yeah.
appreciate, I think Josh wants to say
Yeah,
something
yeah. I
real
got a
quick,
quick question for both of you, right? First part for Rob. So you talk about coaching people through these, difficult decisions, whether, in particular, the one that I had in mind was, making the career change, especially the one that you made. Mendez and I both have made some pretty drastic career changes, coming from Equinox into our own business and now, starting this. How do you get someone, prepared to be able to make that jump from, let's say the corporate world into, the world of entrepreneurship, which for a lot of people is very scary. It's not the easiest thing to bet on yourself and risk it all in order to, obviously the upside is huge. If you can make it, if you can be successful, but the grind that takes it, like you were saying, it was, 6-7 years for you before you started to really see success in what you're doing now. So how do you get people ready for that? And then, for you, Angie, how do you help people with the same type of problem? Oh, sorry. How do you help people with the same problem diagnose and understand their emotions so that they can be ready to make that jump and make it more efficiently without all of the cloudiness that, the four of us obviously know people go through when they're starting their own journey?
Yeah, great question. So first off, I wasn't in the corporate world. I was I guess you consider it like the industrial world. So I used to be like a welder, cutter.
Was a government job.
Well, that was the Air Force before, but after.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I worked at the port. So the port, like you guys have a port in Miami, right, where all the shipments come in. We were in charge of shipments that were coming in and leaving, but mainly I was in charge of maintenance of all like the different crazy moving parts, machinery, like stuff that could get you killed, right? So it wasn't corporate. It was stuff that was like you were getting dirty, you were getting sweaty every single day. I had to learn how to cut. I had to learn how to weld. When I say cut with torch, stuff like that, right? Like very
like in shop.
Right, yeah. And so it was a rough rough job. I think that gave me an edge because I was like, yeah, I don't want to be in this shit anymore, man. I'm good.
Right.
I want to go up, right? And so for corporate people though, it is a bit challenging. Because I have worked with people who were in corporate and they are in corporate and they want to transition out, and there's that attachment still where like, yeah, well, things are good, like everything's
Mhm.
clean. For me, nothing was clean. Like nothing was clean at all. Like I was hawking shit up out of my lungs every single day. Off for 2 weeks, still hawking shit out of my lungs because of the
Jeez.
environment. So that was my like deep end where I was like, I'm good. I want to go up now. She saw firsthand too how nasty it was. So how I've helped people and still am helping people transition out of that, it's you basically have to have such a strong, healthy attachment, like a healthy connection to what you want to become. And so no matter where you're at and how good life is or how it appears to be, you have to have that healthy attachment or association with serving people, living into a purpose, something that's bigger than where you're at right now. And so I work with clients who do have that purpose or have an idea of where and what they want to move into. And that's a big, huge thing for me. And I've worked with people who don't have a purpose or have any clue as far as what they want to move into. And that's like trying to pull teeth, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, I
So
think we all
that's
know those people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Take on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, Angie, have you gotten Rob to weld you and weld anything for you?
Well, since you're asking, no. But I mean, because of that job, this is a person who can do anything, like anything around the house, anything breaks. It's
That-
like,
It's the
yeah,
man,
that's
back of all
It's the
trades.
best when you don't have to call someone, you know?
right. Yeah,
I
he
see
just
Yeah.
that face, Rob.
wrapped
He's like,
my ankle for
yeah.
me.
Yeah,
Well, there's
I got a lot of clients that are like, "Hey man, I punched a hole in my wall. Like, you know how to fix drywall?" Like, "Yeah, I know how to fix drywall. We're good. Like, I'll come over in 10 minutes." Like,
No, he's for real.
Yeah.
He'll show you, be like, yo, I'm going to my client's
Actually,
house.
wait, I just remembered something. We just came back from Siesta Key. We were there for about a week, and for those trips, all you bring are like flip flops. So we were in flip flops. I was in flip flops walking around, and this person over here stepped on the back of it.
yeah,
So
a flat tire.
so
Solid.
Yeah.
Solid.
he broke it, and so he what did you do? He like melted with a lighter.
And
Oh, the
and I
welding.
just yeah, I put it all
Yes.
back together. Yeah.
From the and it stuck and it worked.
Yeah. But see, I don't like
That's one of those YouTube life hacks.
yeah, right. But see, like the thing is though, is like I don't like to do like labor stuff, like dishes or like getting her water. I'm like, yo, I don't get paid for labor.
It's a balance. It's a balance.
Yeah.
So just back to kind of what we were talking about, though, I really want to get your take, Angie, on,
Yeah.
like, how do you get people that are trying to make that next jump? How do you get them emotionally prepared for something like that? Because it is very scary.
Of course. Now, I also, when I sit down with a client for a consultation, it's very important for me to filter out certain things and just to make sure that in that process, I'm able to determine, am I dealing with a person who I need to convince them that this is not what they should be doing because they're so unhappy, versus a person who's like, I got to get out. So I work more with the latter than the former. And
Okay.
so that already is a lot of the work, believe it or not. So it's just about getting them to a point where they make it their goal, instead of being like, I need to quit my job. Mentally, that's what they're thinking as far as that's the objective. I get them to make that switch of, instead of it being that, we make the goal be create an exit strategy. So your exit strategy you can make it look however you want. It could be the way that I did it. It could be the way he did it. It could be the way, there's no one size fits all exit strategy. It's going to be the one that works for you. And then the process that I have found helps create that exit strategy is, first and foremost, being able to determine what your values are. It's very important that you know what your values are, because it has to get to the point where this job you're in or this career path that you're on is not in alignment with your values anymore, because that's where you start to feel the pain. So it becomes very evident at that point. Okay, cool. So then what are your values? And then that could kind of help us steer us in the right direction as to what things to consider putting into our exit strategy. So we talk a lot about values. We make the objective be creating an exit strategy. And then it just, it kind of starts to happen gradually. I have had clients, though. It's happened with a client, I want to say late last year, where in session 1, she said to me, I don't really know if I can make it another day in this job. And I'm like, okay. So I gave her the spiel I just gave you about exit strategy and this, and we started to put like some little parts in action. She started to implement a few things. The next time I saw her, which was 2 weeks later for session 2, she came to me and said she quit her job.
Wow.
So then it's like dealing with that, right? Where sometimes that's just how it happens. Yeah. So she kind of came to me with that, and I'm like, all right, well, that's where we're at, and this we're just gonna have to figure it out from here. So I'm very much a believer of, and this is what I make sure that I bring out of my clients. I'm very much a believer that everything is figure outable. So I remember I was interviewed on a podcast a couple of months ago where I was asked, what do you consider to be your biggest strength? And I used to struggle with that answer because I'm like, I don't know what to say. Like, there's so many things that I feel like I do well, but when I really sat down and thought about it, it's the ability to figure things out as I go. So when I'm able to make that connection with them that, hey, as long as you're not afraid to figure things out as you go and you're willing to, everything's going to be fine.
I love that you mentioned believer because I think we all know who gave
you this. Yes, you're still wearing it. I gave you that. Yeah.
Exactly. Wear it all. That's Josh. I wear it all the time.
Every day. Yeah.
Every day. And I've talked about you guys, and I really liked also another thing you mentioned in there. It's like, first of all, everybody's different. Everybody's personalities, everybody you're going to deal with is a different person. Mm-hmm. But I think, of course, obviously it makes it easier when that person already has some kind of sense of movement, going for them, where now it's just they need that guidance, to get there, because it is hard, when you have to deal with somebody who, you're trying to convince, and our job is not to convince anybody to do something. It's like I always say, and I mentioned to Josh, we talked about it, they're the car, you're the GPS to their car, and you're navigating them. And when there's an understanding between both of you on that, I think it just makes that destination much easier to get there.
I agree. It's the difference between a person who is committed versus a person who is interested. When you're interested, you are going to do whatever it takes, but you're going to do whatever it takes when it's convenient. And when you're committed, you just do whatever it takes no matter what.
That's right.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up, value structure, right? Because we see it all the time, working with our clients in the training world, where they'll tell you that their goals are X, Y, and Z, but their actions don't really align with what their goals are, right? So then you do have to kind of peel back the layers and say, okay, like, really, where do you think that you're at right now, and what are the things that you value, and how do those align with your goals, right? Like if you need to lose 50 pounds, but you really value going out to, really nice dinners with your friends, like, well, maybe you're not going to be able to lose 50 pounds. You might be able to lose 30, but because of your travel schedule and you need to travel for work and then all the dinners and this and that, like, if we set that goal at 50 pounds and we don't achieve it, then that's a negative feedback loop for you. Whereas if we really establish what your values really are and what your intentions really are and what you're able to accomplish, then we can really set an attainable goal, which will then, bring along small wins, which will lead to a positive feedback loop, which, we all know is the goal in the end.
Yeah, there's a process I take my people through, and it does align with values, but it's understanding, like, all right, so like we have goals that we want to achieve, right? And if you understand like the distinction between goals and intentions, right, that's one part. And then the distinction between the ego and like your true self, like who you really, really, really are, and like what you really, really want, right? Because the ego is like, yeah, I see something shiny, I see something hot, I see something with a nice ass, I want that, right? And you're like, yes, 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 right? And
it sounds familiar.
Yeah, right. It does. So like that's the ego, is like, yes, I want that, I want that, I want that. And so a lot of times when we go after those things that we want, those goals, and we get it, we're like, it's actually not that great. Like, it's like whatever, it's cool. It's not really that fulfilling. And so what I help my people through is like, all right, so she's like, really? Would you see who has nice eyes?
Don't be laughing. Jenny's going to be listening, so don't be laughing.
No,
Dennis.
Why'd you laugh? So like when you get clear about, like, let's say you have a goal to, create a certain type of money, right? Let's say it's 10 G's a month. And you're like, all right, I want to be able to create this amount of money. Well, what does that give you? Ask yourself that question. What does that give you? What is that going to be able to supply you? Yeah. What can you get with that?
What's your ROI?
Yeah, exactly. What's your return on that? And so there's a lot of different returns. There's an emotional return, physical return, and whatnot, right? When you get clear on the return, that's the essence behind that. Like that's what's backing the goal, which then can be translated to the intention. Oh, okay, so I just want to feel like I'm more free, like I have more choices, that I have more options, that I feel more secure, or whatever that might be. So that's actually the real thing you're going for. It's not the goal, it's not the money.
The why.
Right.
It's the actual substance behind that. And so when I have my clients align with their intentions, like, hey, all right, this is the goal, right? So what's behind that? Cool. So then actually this is the real intention. There's a lot more freedom there when you connect with that. And so now you're actually pursuing that feeling, which you can actually feel anytime you want. And then you access that anytime you want. And then now you start to see that progress, that movement, and there's no resistance, right? Like you were saying, like, hey, I want to lose 40 pounds, but I like to eat filet mignon every night with my friends. Like, it's not going to happen. You're not going to really get there. You know what I mean? And with old fashioned, you're not going to get that. So it's like aligning with that actual intention. That helps my clients big time. That helps myself big time, really connect with what I want and actually get what I want.
Amazing. And I really love that you mentioned that. And one of the things that I wanted to ask both of you actually was, when you guys are working with your clients, I know I have experience with Angie, maybe things were added on or
you're the reason why he's so sensitive.
I wanted to see, and I want everybody to, in the audience, listen to you guys. What are some of the go-to tools that you guys use? And maybe you can go through maybe one or two. I know there's a few, but what are some of your go-to tools that you'd like to start off your clients with when you're working with them to really start leading them towards those intentions and make them, align with that, so that way they can start succeeding?
Sure. I want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. First thing that has to happen with every single person I work with, no matter what the goal is they have to know how to step into the role of the observer. And it doesn't sound like much of a tool when you talk about it, but it's step one of communication. It's step one of relationships. It's step one of brainstorming. It's step one of problem solving. It's step one of conflict management. It's step one of just even having a relationship with yourself. If you don't know how to master the role of the observer, every other role you play in life will not be as effective. You won't be as effective in that role. So I always say, when something happens or when you experience something that elicits some sort of emotional response or reaction, you have to be able to remove yourself from that thing by stepping outside of it for a second. It doesn't cancel out what happened. It doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It just means that, okay, I was in the shit, so I need to take myself out of the shit in order to make sure that I'm not seeing shit. And then now I'm able to look at it from the outside in and see things for what they are. When you step into the role of the observer, you're able to see things for what they are, meaning these are the facts. I'm not creating a story about the facts, because a lot of people create stories when things happen. And I know this because I still do this sometimes. And I have to make sure that I'm practicing discernment of what is really happening versus what I'm making this mean. You are not able to do that if you don't know how to observe properly. So the first thing that you have to do is step into that role of the observer, and it is a skill that you acquire. So that's the first thing that everyone has to go through when they sign up to work with me. Then step two is enhancing, developing, because we're all at a different point on the spectrum when it comes to this skill, but it's strengthening the skill of empathy. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Gary Vee. Mm-hmm. If you ask Gary, like a lot of people have asked him, what do you consider to be the biggest reason for your success, or the key to success, or the most important ingredient for success? He'll say it's empathy. He even named his wines after.
That's right.
after that name. And people ask him, well, why? He's like, well, think about it as a business owner. If you don't seek to understand your customer, your client, your audience, and what their problems are, their pain points, what they're going through, how else are you going to be able to create the most effective product, service, solution that will bring them so much value that it will solve their problems, and they're going to go to you for it because they feel understood. So I say strengthening the skill of empathy is for sure the next most important tool / skill to develop.
I love that you mentioned that. And, one of the things I just come to realize more and more, and something I now working with my clients, speaking of that, it starts becoming easier where it's now you're not selling your program, you're selling the solution to that problem,
Yes.
for that person.
Boom. You said it.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up, removing yourself from the situation so that you can separate the, constructed narrative that you're forming in the moment, right, from reality. And I personally find myself, or have found myself in the past, like really falling into that trap, right, of like making split decisions based off of like, things I'm feeling in the moment. And a lot of the time, as you can imagine, blows up in my face, so I've really tried to, over the, maybe the past 6 months, and he'll tell you, I've calmed down quite a bit. I used to freak out over everything, every little thing, like a bull in a china shop, but I've really started to implement, a hard 48-hour rule where, like, if I feel that huge rush of emotion of, like, whether it be frustration or anger or disappointment or whatever, right, I analyze that, I feel it, and then I start a timer, like, okay, perfect, it's it's 2:41 on Thursday. On Saturday I can reply to that email, or I'll call Mendez back, or whatever, and we can talk about it again. So then I can calm down and I can take the time to rationalize everything and poke holes in my own argument or my own thought process, to be able to then come to the real truth of the matter, and then be able to come to a solution that's going to lead to a positive result.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you're like a gun store.
Hey.
But you see what's
Hey, we're in Florida, man. You gotta always represent.
Hey. But I think it's just so cool because there's so many ways to approach certain scenarios with different tools, and it's just like, it's kind of like when you find that one tool that works with you and works for you, it's like, there you go, and we talk about it at the time. It's the same thing with health and fitness. When you're working with a client, there's one tool. Somebody might come in both with some shoulder issues or some hip issues. Well, that tool might help him to alleviate some of that, but the other one is not. That same tool is not going to help the other person, even if they came walking in with the same similar symptoms or issues going on. So, the fact that we have all these tools in our arsenal and, have them ready to use for our clients and for them to use on their own, I think is what's amazing. And understanding that, it's these tools for you to find that can really help nourish or create that result that you want and whatever it is you want in your life.
Yeah, that first tool that I shared, as far as like identifying the intention, like what's the essence, the substance behind that, that's tool number one that I help people with. Because like people say, yeah, I want to achieve this, I want this perfect person and blah, 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 all the stuff, right? And it's all legit. And then when I get down to the essence of it, it's like, this is actually what you really want. You're focusing like on the bright, colorful stuff, but really what you want is this, because you want to feel this way. The second thing that I have people do is I have them just straight out say, hey, what are your fears? What are your fears? What do you fear the most? Because if you want to build an audience, if you want to connect with people and actually build legit relationships, not followers, relationships and connection, I'm going to have you do some stuff here. It's going to be challenging. Okay, cool. They're like, yeah. All right, cool. I want you to create a post, 3 posts this week, identifying this stuff, connecting with your audience in this way. Okay, yeah, cool. The week comes by, nothing happens, right? It's like blank crickets the whole entire week. They even avoid the phone calls until the next. I already know how it works, right? So like,
Rob, I had no cell service. Rob, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is that why my calls always drop with you, dude? What the
Maybe.
fuck?
I don't know. Well, when you're feeling a certain way.
Yeah.
Gotta give him 48 hours.
Yeah.
There we go. I gotta put my timer on.
Yeah. Or
Yeah,
just
so
a
like
joint.
He's like, I want to just roll a joint.
Hey, we smoke every night. I smoke. I'll speak for myself.
Yeah, I don't do it every night, but
I do.
But
Every
yeah.
minute of every day, man. I'm usually high.
I
Yep.
love weed.
Yeah.
I think weed has helped me
That
so much.
electric lettuce is tempting. Always tempting. I see it there. I'm like, I could hit that a couple times. Sorry
Well,
to interrupt
my
you.
ankle, I'm probably gonna be high the whole day today. So
It helps.
I'll-
It helps. Take some
yeah.
CBD too. That'll.
Yeah. I
that'll
have
do it.
actually some CBD balm that has a little bit of THC that my clients from California send it to me all the time because you can't order it from here.
Yeah.
So I'm being very like careful with it because it's running low, but that's been helping me too. So I'm all about it.
Woo.
Yeah. So yeah, when I have people like identify, you know, what they want, like, what do you want? That's the first thing you have to know. Like, what do you want, right? Because you board a ship, you board a boat, you board something in your car. Like, I'm gonna drive around, just, you know, see what happens today. You're not gonna get anywhere. You're probably gonna come back home and just chill and smoke a J and chill, right? So like, you have to know where you're going. That's the first part. That's the first tool I help people with, is get clarity. The second part is, all right, so what's the bullshit that's gonna come up? What are your fears? Because there's always bullshit that comes up. Right? Even for me too. Like, I'm like, all right, cool. I want to do this. Yeah, I'm going for this. So I have to ask myself, all right, cool. So what kind of bullshit are you gonna pull on yourself, Rob, this week? What are you gonna pull on yourself? Because you're gonna make some excuses about some random shit that's gonna stop you from getting what you want. So in the very beginning, when I ask my clients, like, hey, so what are your fears? What do you fear the most? Usually it's kind of like very like low level stuff. But when it comes down to it, it's I fear what people think about me. I fear criticism. I fear of looking stupid, looking bad. I fear of being. I have a fear of being judged. Really, what it comes down to is I fear being not loved, not accepted, right? Being kicked out of, rejected, abandoned, being kicked out of the tribe. And so when I get my clients very clear and aware about what they fear and the bullshit that comes up with it, they can identify it. They can see it when it comes up, like, oh my God, yeah, I was about to push live, and I started thinking about, like, oh my God, I'm, you know, what am I going to talk about? Or like, oh shit, I have to cook food for the rest of the week. Like, you don't even fucking food prep, bro. Like, all of a sudden now you're food prepping.
Like, what happened? Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's getting all the bullshit out of the way, man. Because like, when you identify what you want, what your fears are, and what comes up, you can move through it, navigate through it, and you're good. And like, it's not good all the time. It's just more about being aware of it rather than it being in your blind spots and then just sabotaging everything. Because then that's the worst case scenario, is like, yeah, you're sabotaging your success because you don't have enough balls or guts or courage to identify what you're scared of. Those are my tools that I help people.
It's time to crush that old self and rebuild.
Yep.
Build that new identity. I love that. It's one of the things when I work with my clients now too, it's just like I tell them, you know, these belief systems we have, what's that one word that sticks out in belief? And that's lie. And if you grab that, you'll understand that all those beliefs, it's just lies you're telling yourself. And it's all those fears that are building up. And that's why you're not being able to move forward. So you got to realize that you're just telling yourself lies that you're creating, because you can do this. You're capable of doing this.
Yes. And like, too, like, remember back in the day when you would say something in school and someone would say, like, yeah, bro, keep telling yourself that. Remember that? So like, it really is lies. Like, we're always lying to ourselves no matter what. Even like when we want to step into a bigger role, into a different position, whatever it might be, different bracket of earnings, you have to lie to yourself. You really do have to lie to yourself. But then when those lies become manipulative and have you staying low, then that's when they work against you. But ultimately, you're always lying to yourself.
Would you say those lies are more just affirmations of some sort?
Yeah, ultimately, yeah. And the positive note, and like the lighter side of things, yeah, that you're affirming what you want to step into. It's not true yet, so you do have to lie to yourself.
Just got to be careful where that lie is, where it's rooted.
Completely get you.
Yeah, it's like a white lie versus like a normal lie, right? It's like some things we have to tell other people just so we don't hurt their feelings or whatever, and other times we're doing it so that we can't hurt their feelings.
It's almost like it's like when you kind of walk around saying like you feel like a millionaire and act like a millionaire, like, you know what I mean? But to bring it into existence doesn't mean that, you know, it's not that, oh, like I'm out here boasting about things that I don't have, but it's just you're bringing that attraction to yourself so you can have that one day and build towards that one day. So I completely get what you guys are saying.
So once you guys set that foundation with people, I'll let you go first, Angie, and then Rob. Like, what's the process look like after people have come to some sort of realization about the direction that they really need to head into? Like, how do you change it from introspection and understanding to action?
So the first thing that ends up happening is that they go back to the goals they identified in session 1, and 9 times out of 10, they end up tossing them out and writing new ones. So I always make it very clear that when you're identifying some goals with me, that we're not attached to our goals. Our goals evolve just like we evolve. And right now, they're just serving the purpose of direction. And so the process then would look like they go back, and even if they don't toss them out, they always tweak them, they edit them, they make them more about where they're at now, that they've kind of gone through a lot of this deconditioning or deprogramming, so to speak. And then it becomes very bio-individual from there. I would say between the first half of the program, like sessions 1 through 6, maybe sessions 1 through 4, it kind of looks the same for everyone. But after that, it just kind of takes a mind of its own, and then it's very, very bio-individual. Part of it will include things like, which I find to be very helpful, which is why I want to bring it up. Part of it does include identifying which styles of distorted thinking you exhibit. And a lot of people don't know that this is something that they do because this is how I've always been, quote unquote. So they think it's normal to show up that way or to look at things that way. And in reality, you'll find that when you go over all of them, there's about 15 of them that are very common. Almost everyone has a yes next to all of them. So we do them on a daily basis, whether we know it or not, or want to or not. And it's like, you don't know what you don't know. However, now that you know, you're seeing how you yourself are distorting your reality and not seeing things for what they are. So a lot of times, just by doing that part of the program, they go through some major breakthroughs, because it's not about not doing them anymore. It's more about when you do them, now you can catch yourself because you know what you're doing. And then now you know how to alleviate it, to nip it in the bud. So even with that alone, that's something that would be part of the process for anyone right after the second half. But for the most part, it's a very, very bio-individual. It just depends on the person.
So I definitely want to jump in and, definitely say, I definitely had a great experience coaching with you. It was like 2.5 years ago already? Was something like that?
Has it been that long?
I think so, because it was right before it was even before Stella was born, and she's 17 months. So it's been like 2.5 years. So, wonderful experience. I learned a ton, and I gotta say in the relationship and business aspect, it really helped increase a lot of areas in there, and it really helped diffuse a lot of things that I needed to focus on, and a lot with going back with dabbling with too many things and aligning myself with my truth.
You were the dabble king.
I'm still
no way.
He's like, but I've done. I will say I've been able to narrow my focus a lot down, and it's like now I have, and I always remember back and I always hear your words in my head, and going back to where are you putting your focus and energy into, and my priority of what's my most important thing, and I always remember your lowest hanging fruit and your highest hanging fruit. And I'm telling you, all these tools that I've taken from you have really, really stuck out to me. And I even told Rob the other day when we were eating, and I told Josh, I think I mentioned on the podcast before, and I forgot what episode, but one of the things that I realized, which I never realized, was that time, I think it was towards the end of our program, when you were
she's the one.
She's the also where I'm coming
from. She's the one.
So
now I know.
I told them.
Now I get it.
And I was like, building this up, man.
That's our job. That's our job. We got a whole hour.
I was always like streamline and just go and just, it was just one of those things where it's like, I got to do more. I got to do this. And it's like, when you also laid out and asked me like, hey, have you taken a step back to really see like all the accomplishments you've been able to do? And I remember you whooped it out, and you're like, I said whooped it out. When you took out the paper, the binder, you showed me those wins, and you're like,
Those
I bet you didn't even
pages.
realize that.
The pages.
Those pages, I remember, and I was like, holy shit. And you're like, did you even realize you had all these wins? And, you know, do you ever take time to acknowledge that for a second and take a step back? So that's a huge, powerful thing that I would say it's really helped me, and I use it. So every half of the year, I try to make time and assess what I've been able to do, and been like, let me take this time to really let this sit in, you know, acknowledge this, know that I did a good job, love myself for it, and then be able to use that to be able to continue moving forward. So, you know, I've told Josh that, and, you know, I was like, you know, my coach taught me that. So I gotta say thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, kudos to you for, you know, providing him with the excellent advice that helped him remember all the great things he did and kind of narrow down his focus towards. I still get those calls sometimes from him, and it's like, all right, first of all, don't be mad at me, but I just sent out 400 DMs to people for the podcast. I'm like, oh my God, here we go.
Nicely done.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But I think that's a cool thing too, and that's when you know your strengths and your weaknesses, and you know too, like that's the beautiful thing of having teams is like, you know who has their strength and what place they hold, and then vice versa, you know. And I think that's the cool things where you can hold each other accountable, you know, call each other out, you know, play, you know whose role is what, and support each other on that. And then both of you understand at the same time where, like, you know what, I need some of that, I need some of that, you know, I can see why this works and why this is important. So it's definitely a key factor when it comes to, you know, if you're doing a business or something. So Angie, I wanted to ask you, just because I know it has been about 2.5 years, and, you know, going through your amazing program, what tools, or, you know, just to know, have you added any tools? Have you added any new things to your program? And how does that look like?
Yeah, one of them we never got to it was distorted thinking. It was something that I had to kind of take myself through first a little bit to kind of master it and feel comfortable adding it to the curriculum. So that one, that's why I shared with Josh when he asked that for the most part, I take everyone through that, the latter half now, because that by itself, man, it you know, they have a name for questions that when you ask them produce, they give a lot of feedback. They're called high mileage questions. That exercise is a high mileage exercise. So that is something right off the bat that I do. You and I, we didn't do subconscious mind stuff. So I'm now doing a lot of stuff with the subconscious mind, deprogramming and reprogramming. There is an exercise called the LCR that I do where we take a look at what the exact limiting beliefs are. And then we have to make sure that they match their beliefs, that they match their conscious intentions or their conscious goals. So for example, if on one side you're telling me, I want to create money, and I want to create 2 more streams of income, and I want to pay off this amount of debt, and I want to make 7 figures, and you have all these really cute goals on the left hand side, but if on the right hand side you have a belief that money is the root of all evil, rich people are typically assholes or they're greedy, money doesn't grow on trees, money doesn't buy happiness, now there's a conflict, right? So your brain views that as a conflict, which means that you don't address it with the former, you address it with the latter. We have to address the beliefs first and figure that out so that there's a match. And when there's a match, you will, once you start moving towards your goals, you won't feel that pullback that most people feel when they make traction, because that's why people get pulled back, because truly their core belief does not match or align with the conscious goal and intention. So those are 2 examples of other things that I've added.
Love it. Love it. Anything to say, Josh?
No, I think you have you know, just from the 45 minutes we've been talking already, a very well-rounded program, right, in order to be able to help people really overcome the barriers, because they are a lot more nuanced than I think people realize, or people, like you mentioned earlier, right, with like these cookie cutter coaching programs, you know, people, the coaches who promote those things are usually ones who are like, oh, it's these 3 easy steps, and, you know, it'll take no time, and in 2 weeks you'll be a 7-figure man or woman, right. You know, it's like, nah, you know, the human body, the human mind, the human emotion is so nuanced, is so interconnected, that it really does take having a lot of these very, very difficult conversations with other people and even with yourself, right? Where you can, as you were saying earlier, Rob, like dissolve the ego to be able to, really overcome the challenges that are in front of you so that you can have the success and you can have the life and you can have the relationships that you really are seeking, So it's great to hear that, there are people like you, Angie, who are out there, really having the conversations with people that need to be had because, as we all know with the age of social media, it's a lot of quick fixes, right? People are always looking for that 5-second thing to get them to where they think they need to go, and it's really not like that.
I agree. Here we have a person who I always tell him, you're the guy who always says what people are thinking, and I had never met anyone else who I guess was courageous like that because I operate that way.
Rob is the man.
Oh man, this is the guy.
The man.
Look, my nickname for him is this.
Stir the pot.
Stir the pot.
Woo!
I feel you there, man. I feel you there.
All right, let's go.
And you know what? Some people hate him for it, but some people love him. And I always say, like, you need to keep doing it because your message, and same goes for you guys, same goes for me. Your message and what you do is not supposed to be for everyone.
Right.
It's not. At the core, it's not. So stop trying to make yourself for everyone. It is, however, for the people that it's for.
It's
And
like
so,
that saying that goes, if you try to serve everybody, you don't serve anybody.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Nah,
So I always tell him, like, when in doubt, just stir the pot.
Mendez said I was gonna like you guys, and now I really know why. I'm a big pot stirrer. I'm a big pot. I love, even if it's just to get a rise out of people. I love saying and doing shit to like put people on the edge, to really see what their character is. It's like if you're kind of thrown into the shit, you're thrown into the chaos. Like I get to really see who you are as a person pretty quickly. So
I say that shit all the time.
Yeah.
Like when shit hits the fan, now you get to really figure out who people really are.
Yeah.
Like when everything hit the fan back earlier this year, I'm like, oh, you were leading these people?
Yep.
You're a little
right.
bitch.
Yep.
Goddamn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yo, I love that, man. I love that. I got a cool question to ask both of you, and definitely want to hear both your answers and perspectives from each end. So I'm sure there's a lot of coaches out there listening to the podcast as well, and there might be some that are couples too. I want to dive into that
Like
a
us?
little bit. Yeah, I know, like us.
Like us.
If I don't
You're my
say that,
heterosexual partner in
he'll
life,
get,
dude.
He'll get upset.
Yeah.
I can tell the feeling is starting up right now.
Hey, where are the tissues?
But I want to know, what is it? What are the core things? Hearing from each of you, what are the core things that it takes when being we're talking about two alphas who are great individuals, great at what they do. And I'm sure at the same time that you guys have a lot of that like-minded, there's still other areas that, hey, there's discussions, there's other things going on, maybe not everything is, the same, or the way we think is the same. So what are some of those discussions that you guys have had, or how do you guys approach that when you guys are talking, and how do you make it work? Exactly. How do you make it work? And for all those coaches out there, maybe you can show them how they can make it work.
Yeah, ego. That's a motherfucker, man. You have to kick that motherfucker to the side, because a lot of time. I remember the first one of the time.
Yes, here we go. Here we go. I'm hyped.
10x.
Yeah, shout out
Grant Cardone, baby.
Shout out Grant Cardone.
Mm-hmm.
Make America great.
Oh yeah, this is one thing that gets people triggered all the time. I love
Stir
this.
the pot.
Yeah, I was nervous about like representing this because I actually represented no party. This is not your question that you asked about, but I represented no party, had no interest in government shit because I used to be so involved in that stuff back in the day, years ago. And I started to get so focused on personal development. I was like, dude, this whole like left, right shit, this is all keeping people entrapped. I don't want nothing to do with this. I want to build my business. I want to focus on building myself and help people, right? And then it wasn't until this past year I kept hearing people just talking trash and nonsense. And I'm like, why do so many people hate Trump? He must be doing something right, because everybody in the media, every single person was talking shit. He's probably doing something right. And I started looking into it, sure enough, because that's always the pattern, right? It's always the opposite of what mainstream media is saying. And so I was like, oh my God, here we go. Here we go. So anyways,
how do we make it work, babe?
how do we make it work? Well, you started it with a hat flip. But anyways,
Somebody had to do it.
somebody had to do it. Yeah, it's the ego, man. It's the ego. So first of all, this one time, I remember we were laying on the bed here, and she started telling me, it was, I think, 2 years ago. She was New Year's Day, or the day after New Year's.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, yo, like, you have to like pick up in these areas of your life, or else it's not gonna work. Like, it's not gonna work. You have to step it up. Like, these things, this, and this. And so I'm sitting here in the corner, and the whole entire time, my mind is like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, do you see what you do? Like, who are you to say this, right? It's going and going and going. And I'm hearing it, and I'm like, just shut up, Rob. Just listen. And I'm not saying anything. I'm just listening the whole entire time, right? 30 minutes of just like boom, boom, boom. And when she asked me, well, what do you have to say about that? Well, first thing that came out was like, I agree with you on everything that you just said. I do. I have to take some time now to like digest this and kind of decompress and just analyze some things. I'll get back to you in a few minutes. And I'm like, all right, cool. Right. So like the other version of me would be like, no, fuck you. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are to say all this stuff, whatever. So to make things work, two alphas, is you have to just listen. Like, you have to kick your ego to the side and listen and absorb the information that's coming in, even if you don't agree with it, right? Because the first part of you that doesn't agree with it is the ego that's saying, we don't want to look at this stuff. She's probably right, but we don't want to look at this stuff. Just reject her, push her away. And so in everything and anything in life, it's listen, like, put the ego to the side, check the ego, check your identity that's being challenged, and just hear out what's being said, what's being presented to you.
Which is observing.
Okay.
Yeah. Observing.
Feedback.
I mean, even on the the flip side for you, Angie, giving him the ability to digest all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And think about it in the ways that, he needs to process it, and then allowing him the space to be able to then come back and admit, okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I could step things up. That takes a pretty big person as well, because too often, I was married, I'm now divorced, and I had the same thing where, I was in your shoes, Rob. I'm like, who the fuck do you think you are? And then once I finally get to the point where it's like, okay, maybe I do need to digest all this stuff. At times my ex-wife, and God bless her, she's a great person, but we were both young, and she would not give me the opportunity to be able to digest and think about it. She'd be like, no, fuck you. We're talking about this right now. And,
I'd have to work.
I mean, all in Spanish and at a much higher tone of voice, but, but, I think having that balance, especially when, you're in a relationship, or even when you're working, like Mendez and I are, or when, what you guys do, when you guys do work together at times, as a couple, it's like, it does take two big people to be able to one, and, go up to, Angie, in your case, to Rob, and say, listen, like, you're fucking up. You got to step it up. That takes a lot of balls. For lack of a better term, I know, but, and for you to be able to sit there and admit, like, I do need to step up, and you giving him the space to be able to digest that and say what he needs to say, and admit his wrongs, and move forward. Like, a lot of people need more of that in their lives, right? Like, you brought up Trump. I think too much of our political system is just fucking screaming at each other, instead of saying, like, I'm a Republican myself, and one of my friends is a huge Democrat, and we went through the same thing, where it's like screaming at each other, trying to just throw facts at each other and do all this. And it's like, all right, well, why don't we calm down a little bit? We can have a reasonable conversation. And turns out, we actually agree on a quite bit more, other than maybe some of the nuanced policies Trump, or, in the Democratic case Biden have. It's like, well, we agree on maybe moving towards nuclear power, or doing this and that. So you really start to come and realize, like, there's a lot more common ground.
Yeah.
As we are as people, than these, giant mainstream media talking points.
And then we all realize it's just listening.
Yeah. Something else that's I think very important to note here in this question you asked is, think about the things that you ask for and have asked for so long. I mean, I always knew that with my failed relationships in the past that, you know, there had to be someone who I didn't feel like I was completely settling for, right? So you ask for, a lot of people ask for this partner, a lot of people ask for this type of ideal partner, and she has to be this way or he has to be this way, and it's fine. You know, you like what you like, right? But a lot of times they ask for it and they're searching for it and they want it so bad that when they do get it, because that's what happened to me with him and that's what happened to him with me, they don't know how to hold it. So it's kind of like you can't pray for rain and then get the rain and then complain when there's mud. So it's like I always use the example of athletes, of professional athletes who become millionaires overnight. And you'll see that a lot of them, when they retire in 2 to 3 years, what happens? They go bankrupt. They don't know how to hold their money. Now that they're out of the spotlight, they don't have people handling their shit for them, and they're living life as like a quote unquote ordinary person. They lose all their money. So you have to pay attention to, like, if you've asked for this type of relationship, or you've asked for this type of business, or you've asked to become a millionaire, or you've asked for the children, or you've asked for this, and you got that, like, that comes with a responsibility. It can't just be the first moment shit gets tough, I'm gonna go jump ship, you know? So I just feel that we've had to remind ourselves of that often, where like we have to defy the impulse to jump ship and realize this is what we've asked for. And then while working on the stuff we needed to work on, you know, individually and together, are these things that can actually be worked on, or are these things that are non-negotiables? And you'll find that out, but you have to, like, you know, stick to the process and figure out how to hold that very thing you asked for. So that's something that really helps.
Yeah,
I
communication is key.
big time. And I really love how you brought up responsibilities, you know, and taking responsibility. And you know, definitely, I know we spoke about it in our coaching, where
Oh
you know,
yeah.
you're you know, even if one person might, you can tell one person is more on the edge of, like, okay, well, they need to have that time or understand, okay, maybe they're a little more in the wrong or more in the wrong. You still are responsible
You
and are
co-created
still,
part of that.
and you're still co-create. Exactly. You're still part of that wrong. So, you know, it's a together thing that you need to, you know, tackle on. It's not, oh, because one person is more right than the other. So I really absolutely love that. Guys, I know we crushed the shit out of this podcast, and we've been
It's a
on
monster.
this. Yeah, I
It
love
was a
this.
monster.
And we dropped a tons of bombs.
Yeah.
And we're getting to that time. But I want to ask you guys two questions. I don't know if Josh has anything left.
No, I mean, we've covered quite a bit, and I just want to say before Mendez asks you these questions, you know, one more final time, thank you guys so much for coming on here.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you guys want to give us your social media account,
Everything.
anywhere your websites, all that stuff, where they can find all your content, all the great stuff that you guys are doing, your programs?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram, my personal page, Rob Reynosa, ROBREYNOSA _. Also my website, thereisnoceiling.com.
That's a great domain
It's
name, man.
dope.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's his brand, THINC.
Awesome.
Yeah, you should definitely go see both of their stuff.
Yeah, I will for sure. I'll check it all out.
For me, my Instagram is at I am Angie Sanchez. I'm more active there than in any other social media platform, so IG is a great way to reach me. And my website is www.angiesanchez.life.
I gotta just throw it out there. You know, Instagram popping up with the Instagram Reels. They're gonna take over TikTok now. So watch out.
It's wild.
They're swatting that
over.
shit down.
Wild.
We were talking about that. I got two questions for you guys.
Go first.
First question: are we going to see a coaching couples program come out from both of you together that you worked on?
Ooh.
Yes. One thing I can guarantee, I think we can both guarantee, is that you will definitely see an event of us co-creating.
Beautiful.
For sure.
You better tell us when that is.
Event.
No masks allowed.
No masks allowed. No bullshit. No masks.
Well, we'll be there and supporting you guys for sure.
Hell yeah.
Mask or no mask, we'll be there.
So you guys gotta definitely let us know when you know, whenever you guys have any kind of projects, we'll definitely push it out. Last question, of course. Last question for both of you. In one sentence, each of you. what is the biggest piece of advice you can leave off to everybody today? Whoever wants to go first.
Success is always a decision away.
Facts.
The same amount of energy it takes to get out of bed at 5:45 in the morning when your fucking bed's nice and warm is the same exact amount of energy it takes to create a business.
Boom.
Get the fuck up and go. Let's go.
Hell yeah.
So true.
Let's go. No ceilings.
I'm gonna go with what first popped up. Nothing is under control, but you are in control.
Boom.
I love that one. I love that. That's
Yep.
that's amazing. That's amazing.
I have to emphasize that because a lot of people
Yep.
feel powerless often when things happen. You're not.
Yep. It's like I say, especially in today's world, you know, don't control what you can't control. Control what you can, and that's yourself.
Which is your
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Angie. Rob, we got to wrap this up.
Love you guys.
We appreciate you guys. Until next time, everyone.
Woo.